Okay, thanks everybody for joining us. We are live with Nick Marshall, who is a fantastic human on this planet. Nick is an assistant professor. He is a sports and musculoskeletal physio. That's a mouthful, isn't it? Musculoskeletal physiotherapist and co-founder of Surf Life Physio on the Gold Coast. He's travelled numerous times with the Queensland State and Australian Surf Lifesaving teams, as well as being the physio for the Samoan Rugby League teams and the Junior Gold Coast Sunsets and the Suns team under 16 side. He's worked with Swimming Australia. He's been elected by the IOC for International Lifesaving, the International Anti-Doping Committee, and the Australian Physiotherapy Association Queensland Branch Sport and Exercise Physio Committee. He's crazy. Creator of the Albatross Nippers, which is a charity that provides programs for inclusive nippers, across multiple surf clubs in Southeast Queensland. He's a winner of multiple awards for his work and passion, including being named the 2020 Queensland Local Hero, which meant he was in line for Australian of the Year Awards as the Local Hero category. Everybody, please welcome Nick. We've got a round of applause happening.
Thank you. Excellent.
I know, right? Applause. I will get better at it, I'm sure. Thanks, Nick, for joining us.
No, thanks for having me. I'm a little bit embarrassed with all the things you said that I do. It makes me sound like I'm over everything, on top of everything, but I'm certainly not at all.
Mate, you have had so many incredible achievements and awards. What do you consider is your greatest highlight so far?
Oh, look, I mean, I'd have to say family and getting married and having kids and everything is my greatest highlight. And that's probably what brings me the most joy. But I guess professionally, it would be the Albatross Nippers, you know, and probably establishing that and having that as I guess something just that was brand new, you know, something a little bit different. And I don't have a child with special needs or anyone in my family with special needs for that matter. So for me, it was as much about learning about their journey and what these families go through. I've lived a really, really easy life in comparison to these families and these children. But I guess having an opportunity to meet these families and learn and grow along the way, that's probably what I'm most proud of. A lot of the other stuff that I've been able to do, I've probably followed other people's paths, but this was one that I had to sort of create my own path for.
So how did you even come up with the idea, and what was some of the obstacles you had to overcome to be able to put it in place?
The reason I came up with the idea is I've always been a nipper coach on the Gold Coast after sort of being a clubby and surf lifesaver my whole life. And I started to have a few children who were in our group at Nobbies and other clubs when I was coaching there as well, who had siblings with special needs. And at the time, I'm not sure if it was my personality or whether I was a physio, but it just meant that these kids would come and join me. I'd call them my assistant coach and they'd stand beside me and I'd kind of whisper things in their ears to yell at their brothers or sisters as they went past. And then it just sort of grew where we thought, well, why don't we try and have them join in? And I guess from a training perspective, I thought it would be quite easy. But then in the reality was there was a lot of things I had to, particularly surf lifesaving where safety is such a paramount issue. There was a lot of hoops that I had to sort of jump through. And I think in certain sports it would be a lot easier than others. But obviously lifesaving have a very strong history and need to make sure that everyone's safe before they do everything. And that means there's a lot of criteria and I guess tests that you have to meet before you can just jump in with any squad. And so that meant that we really had to start a nipper program. And it basically, I guess being a physio, I was able to just have a little bit more sway with the organising body and probably being a long time clubby and with them, it just helped get it off the ground. And I'd love to be able to say, I toiled away and I had all these barriers I had to overcome, but I really didn't. People bent over backwards to allow it to happen, and were fantastic at just making it happen for me. So, when people say, "Oh, it must have been so hard," it really wasn't. But it meant that a whole bunch of people, I think, wanted it to happen, but just needed a little bit of a shove. And then once we got started, it's just gained so much momentum. So it's been fantastic.
That's so awesome. So what inspired you to be a physio?
I guess as a kid, I was a swimmer and a clubby, and I'd love to be able to say I would never have admitted this probably 20, 25 years ago, that I just wasn't good enough. I just simply was never good enough. And I probably was guilty of always overdoing things. It's probably just my personality to overdo things. So I was constantly on a physio bed, injured. Mum and dad were constantly forking out money for me to see a physio. And I think it was just one of those things where you come across adults as a kid, and certain ones leave an impression more than others. And I probably was lucky to have some, a range of physios in different sports that I thought were pretty cool people. I thought it was a pretty cool job. And then I guess it sort of went from there. I'm the kid of, my parents are both lawyers. So I think everyone thought I'd be a lawyer, and that was never going to happen. So yeah, I think it was just that. I think I just saw a few physios as a kid and thought that was a pretty cool sort of profession.
Yeah, awesome. I wanted to be a physio as well, but I wasn't smart enough. I had my head stuck in a pool.
Well, I'm not smart either. So
I can't even say musculoskeletal.
Trust me, no physios can. That's why we write it down.
So, Nick, what is your greatest passion in life, that you think?
I guess fundamentally, I guess this is something I've never thought about up until the last year, when I get asked this a little bit, like, what's your why, or why do you do what you do? And I think I really, really enjoy seeing people get better, or giving people input and allowing them to be better. So whether that's, here at work today, whether that's just allowing somebody to sit longer because we're all sitting in front of our desks now working, or whether that's them go back and play footy or swimming. I think I love being a part of that. I love being a part of being able to help them. And then I guess, I don't know if it's selfish or not, but then I guess be a part of their success moving forward, being able to enjoy seeing them really go on to do great things. So that's what I've loved about coaching, but also it's what I love about being a physio, is you do become a little bit invested in the people that you see, and then you do get to share in hopefully their success, and hopefully you're not sharing in their failure. But yeah, being able to enjoy the ride that they're on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you've worked with so many teams. How did that all eventuate? Did you keep putting your hand up going, oh, I'll do this, I'll do that?
That's probably my personality, to just sort of say yes to everything and try and work out how we'll get it done after that. But it was probably also just really lucky. Again, it's one of those things, it's not what you know, but who you know. And I think probably growing up in sport, a lot of sports people have gone on to have roles that are, have, I guess, lent themselves to need a physio, or, they've been involved in teams, particularly swimmers. I mean, swimmers, like I said, I was never a good enough swimmer, but a lot of swimmers have gone off into sort of other roles. And then I'm that little kid that they used to swim with. They think, oh yeah, well, he's not too much of an idiot. And they've kind of, I put my hand up and said I'd be interested, and then they've either contacted me or just in passing, they've been somebody that you've treated and they've said, oh, we need a physio for this. So I don't think I've ever been all that successful at getting jobs that I've actually had to properly apply for. I think the majority of the jobs I've got have just been that I've known the person and hopefully from there done a good enough job to stay where I am. Yeah, so I guess that's how it's happened. And I mean, there'd be certain people out there that go, I was hoping that you studied really hard and were really smart, but I'd be the dumbest physio that's ever graduated. There's no doubt about that. And then, so I've just been lucky, really.
Yeah, luck. Hard work creates luck. So, Nick, what about the IOC anti-doping? I worked with the Australian Olympic Committee anti-doping for a long time. How did you get onto that side?
Again, that's another one of those ones that I almost tripped over the line to get into that position. So I guess from a Lifesaving perspective, they have a World Championships every 2 years. And over the last 10 years, what I've really been keen to do, and look, Lifesaving in terms of Ironman racing, they've wanted to be an Olympic sport or have elements of lifesaving within the Olympics, whether it's pool rescue or the surf component. And so about 10 years ago, we decided at our World Championships, we'd have a medical teams catch up. I'd seen it in rugby union and I'd seen it in rugby league. So I thought that's a really good opportunity to exchange ideas and get to know all the medical team. So 10 years ago, I established that and still going. It would have been going this September in Italy, where we were due to have our World Championships. And from that, again, not because I was anything special, but I just sort of became the spokesman, I guess, for that group. So for the medical team group in Lifesaving, which gets you a position up the chain. And one of those positions was as part of our anti-doping committee. So again, love to be able to say it was because I was incredibly smart, but it was more just that I thought there was an opportunity for us all to exchange ideas. Lifesaving in Australia is very much dominated by Ironman racing, but lifesaving in Europe is very much dominated by pool rescue stuff. So it's a really interesting way to look at things. And I thought an interesting way to get to know everybody and exchange the way things that we do. So I'm a physiotherapist, but there's other people on that group that are sports doctors or GPs, chiropractors, massage therapists. So again, I just happened to be the person who just decided to create it, and then that put me on this committee with the anti-doping committee. So I wouldn't say I make any fantastic recommendations for it, but I think it allows me just to be that kind of safe face amongst a group of athletes, and hopefully a trustworthy one that they feel safe to ask questions.
You're incredibly humble, Nick. So tell us, how do you unwind every day?
Well, at the moment, with my kids at home, not well. So I would have said a year ago that I'd like to paddle and still swim and paddle with the group that I coach, and we live quite close to the ocean, so it's easy to do that morning and afternoon. Generally, I like to have my kids down at the beach and we sort of muck around and do little games and stuff. I think because they're stuck indoors now, they're ready to explode the minute I walk in the door. So it's almost like if my wife's not working that day and I am working, I walk into like chaos and have to take over for a little bit, and I probably take over pretty poorly as well. But generally, some sort of activity is sort of like what I like to do. I'd love to have little adventures with the kids where we live here on the Gold Coast, and certainly in and around Mermaid Waters. There's adventure kind of areas. The kids probably begrudgingly come on these adventures with me, but I find them fun. But that's probably what I would do to unwind.
Yeah, and they will look back on that and go, do you remember when Dad used to take us on these adventures? It'll be a great story for them.
These dumb adventures, that's what they'd be saying. I hate them.
So when you were growing up, did you have a hero that you aspired to be like?
Hero. I mean, look, having grown up in Brisbane and swimming with Mr. Carew, Kieran Perkins was sort of 3 or 4 years older than me in our squad. And so, morning and night, I'd be in the same squad as him. So watching him become, I guess, like a hero just to me in our squad, to all of a sudden being like Australia's hero, I guess was a really steep learning curve into like, wow, how cool is this? So he would have always been somebody that we looked up to, and everyone in our squad looked up to. I guess, but as a Brizzy kid, like Wally Lewis was always the person I wanted to be. I had posters of Wally on my wall, and I desperately wanted to be him. And he was an ambassador for our Albatross program in the first couple of years because he was a member of Nobby Surf Club, and my voice gets shaky when I have to talk to him on the phone. I'm still too nervous to go up and just talk to him. So he'd probably be my all-time hero. But I mean, I guess having seen Kieran grow up beside us, that he was probably somebody too. I would never have admitted it to Kieran at the time, and I haven't seen him for 10 years. But he certainly, he was definitely a hero of everyone in our area. Yeah.
So who's been a big inspiration to you that wasn't your parent, or an influence on you?
Oh. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I guess I've probably always been lucky to have that a coach, whether it be swimming or surf, who was that surrogate parent. So very early on, it was Mr. Carew in Brisbane, and I mean, he could lose his cool. He could lose his cool at me as well a lot. But at the time, that was kind of that parent that you never listen to mum and dad, but you listen to your coach, and you come home and say, "Oh, I should be doing this," is what Mr. Carew said, and your parents would kind of roll their eyes and say, "Oh, I've been telling you that for like 10 years." So I guess Mr. Carew was one, and then I guess my swimming coaches, I've been like really lucky to have a bunch of swimming coaches, even when I was doing surf, that were really positive, I guess instilled hard work. I swum for a few years with Graham McDonald. I swum for 10 years with Dennis Cottrell down here on the Gold Coast. I did a little bit of training with Terry Buck prior to his death as well, more surf stuff than swimming. So I always had those sort of older statesmen as coaches that were, they had their strengths and weaknesses, but they were always instilling hard work. And I guess that's hopefully rubbed off on me as being somebody that's, I guess, doesn't want to dream about making money or being successful, but realise you've got to work hard for it. And if you don't work hard, well, you can't really expect to get, those dreams. So those people, I mean, all those coaches, and also, Rick van der Zandt was another one in Brisbane I spent some time with as well while I was at university. So they were all really good, easy to talk to people. And even though swimming was only a very small component of my training with surf, the other person you're with every morning. So they were probably really positive influences for me.
Yeah. So with this lockdown that we're experiencing and this crazy time, how have you been able to, how's your practice been going, how your clinic been going, and also what are some of the things that you've implemented to, keep yourself going?
Yeah, so because I wear a few different hats, there's been certain parts of my job that have just completely stopped. So because I work for the NRL referees, you see me on the field at Broncos-Titans games, that's obviously not happening at the moment. My role with Swimming Australia has greatly diminished because obviously they're not coming together in a squad, so I'm not seeing them hands-on. But what, as physios, we're trying to do is transition to telehealth, so similar to what we're doing now, where somebody will talk to me in this sort of setting, explain what's going on. I'll ask them to do a couple of tests in front of me, and then I'll prescribe some exercises or potentially other things that they could do. We still are staying open as a clinic here on the Gold Coast, so half of our staff have completely transitioned to telehealth, so we're only seeing people via video or via the phone, just so that we're not, risking their health to come into the clinic, whereas others, we've put measures in place that they can still come in. So we've gone from, this mad panic that everything was going to stop and that business was going to fail, and we've just had to find another way to stay open and another way to continue to make, money to pay all our staff. We've really been doing our best to make sure that no staff gets kind of laid off or has no work. I know there's options there for the government as well at the moment, but which we haven't actually utilised yet, but just desperately trying to tread water so that hopefully at the end of all this, business as usual.
Yeah. So once we do get back to normal and everything, what's next for you? You've achieved so much so far. What's next on the agenda?
It's a good question. I never really get a chance to think about it. I guess, there'll be a whole bunch of things that'll come up that will put off because of the break. So there'll be teams and stuff to go away with. One of my biggest things, I guess, if I just speak about the Albatross part, is to continue to progress that so that every surf club has an option to have an inclusive program. And there's some things that we're working on there, particularly with the way that Surf Lifesavers wear a rashie and it becomes part of their uniform. We want to have a rashie that's floatable. It has a flotation element so that every child with special needs can put that on and still participate in nippers. And then it just becomes not so much, a special club or a special thing at certain clubs. It can be done at every club, and these children can be a part of nippers wherever they live. So that we're working heavily on that, and I'm certainly got a lot of time to work on that at the moment. So that's probably the next goal. We've got this documentary that we made about the Albatross Nippers, which was on Virgin Airlines flights, but unfortunately no one's flying now, so you can't actually watch it. But we put that on YouTube, so if you ever wanted to watch that, it's only 30 minutes, called Included. It's the Albatross Nippers story. So I'm certainly doing my best now so that I can get that in front of as many people as possible, from the biggest names to just anybody in their house, and then hopefully get an opportunity to meet those people and talk to more people once we get out of isolation, about how they could do not just inclusive nippers, but just inclusive programs in their community. I think everyone's fearful of it, and everyone is scared to say the wrong thing or scared to say something that someone might be offended by. But the one thing I've learned in this journey is it's just about doing something. If you can start it, there's so many people that will help you, but people are just a bit nervous to take that sort of first step.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we need leaders like yourself. So, Nick, as a health professional, boxers, brief, or commando?
Oh, I'm briefs, actually. That's so uncool, I've been told. But
Oh, is it?
apparently, I've been told that. I'm so old and so uncool.
It was one of the questions that someone wanted to know. She's a massage therapist, I don't know what she was thinking about. So, Nick, what do you think makes you great? And if you could harness that, what would that be?
Somebody else coined this for me, so this is not me describe myself as like a egotistical maniac, but I think I'm prepared to fail more often and fail quickly. So I'm not afraid of doing something, having it fail, but failing quick enough that I can redo something else. So what I think, some people procrastinate so long about something and will find 1,000 reasons why they can't do it, and that just becomes too hard, as opposed to just trying it. If it fails, that's fine. You can try and learn from that failure and redo it a different way, or you can say, okay, well, I've tried that, it didn't work, and I'm going to move on to something else. So one of my biggest things is just to give it a go. It doesn't matter if it fails, because there's millions of things that I've done that have failed, but it's only after you fail that you can go back and change it. Certainly the Albatross is a perfect example. When we started, it was a standalone day on a standalone beach. Wasn't part of the Nipper program, and parents loved it, but they said, geez, we'd love to be a part of actual Nippers, not just a special needs day. So at the end of that first year, we went back and changed it, and we are where we are now. So I think being prepared to try something and fail is really, really important, but also fail quickly so that you're not prolonging that agony. You find out how it can work and not work, and then you quickly adapt and modify to it.
I love that. That's so good. So tell me a song that resonates with you, that either can pick you up when you're having a bit of a flat day, or that you hear it and you go, oh my goodness, that's describing me.
Oh, that's a toughie. Okay. I always listen to November Rain by Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
Again, that'll make me sound really old.
Do you visualize the lady walking down the aisle when you sing that song?
I sometimes do. Yes.
How hot was she? Seriously.
I know, and now you go back and watch it and you think, my God, what was I thinking? How was I into this music?
So old.
The big hair and yeah, it's probably one. I mean, I'll probably go through phases. I do listen to a fair bit of Coldplay at the moment, because you find yourself just zoning out for periods on end at the moment. But I'm also I'm a subject to so many kids' music and stuff at the moment. So we'll constantly be stuck on Wiggles music or something that we've found on YouTube. That I'll think, oh, how have I got to here? And then I'll start singing it to myself, and I think, oh, I've become that person. So there was a song from the Wiggles, I can't even remember which one it was now, but we listened to it all weekend, and then my wife caught me downloading it just from my own phone. Yeah, I can't even remember what one it was now.
Well, they sang one of the Eagles songs, didn't they? They end up, and all the kids were going, how do you know this song, Mum and Dad?
Did they? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
right.
Sure. Funny.
No, this one definitely had Simon in it, and he was doing if anyone who watches the Wiggles will know who Simon is, had a deep voice at one point, and I used to laugh at it, so I downloaded it. I've never heard the end of that. So, yeah.
I'm going to go search for that now. So the big question that everyone wants to know, Nick Marshall, peanut butter, Vegemite or Promite?
Oh, Vegemite, 100%.
Lots of
Vegemite.
butter?
Lots of butter.
Skirick.
No, not probably heaps of butter. I mean, I'm not one of those people that, like my parents or my dad, who would like cover the toast in Vegemite like thick. Can't do that. That's
No.
horrendous. But I can't eat Promite. Oh,
what?
I don't know what. Yeah.
It's so good.
Is it?
Oh, so good.
Yeah, no, I can't. Peanut butter, I could, occasionally, but Vegemite.
Vegemite man. Favorite movie?
Oh, again, this will be favorite movie. Probably Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
You are showing your age, and I'm older than you.
I know. That was. I would have watched that movie a million times. That's probably. Yeah, it's probably all-time favorite.
Favorite board game?
Oh, favorite board game. Well, I don't know if they call it a board game, but my kids and I have got really into Hungry Hippo of late.
Yeah.
Probably a very kids board game, but that's what we've been playing a lot.
Do you get aggressive? Are you competitive?
Oh, yeah. And then get annoyed when I think my hippo's not tilting properly. I'm like, that's ridiculous. I have to swap colours. I'm like, this one's definitely not working. So that's, yeah. That usually ends in tears as well. So we do play Uno a bit too. Actually, Uno would be another one. Not so much a board game, I guess.
Oh, no, still, a game. Yeah. So alive or dead, who would you like to meet and why?
Alive or dead? this is probably not that difficult to do, but again, because I'm such a baby, I'd never have the guts to do it. I'd actually really like to meet Wayne Bennett, actually. He would actually be someone I'd like to meet. Obviously, he's lived with children with special needs, but maintained a very strong work ethic. I think what you see of him on the media is very different to what he's like behind the scenes. And he's somebody that I really like that ethos that people are better with him than they would be without. And so that would be someone, whether I'd like to meet him or just spend time with him to see how that works, as a really good communicator and motivator of people. So he'd be one. There'd be plenty of people that I'd like to spend time with now, to apologise for how much of a shit of a kid that I was younger, who have potentially passed away or moved on. I think, I wish I had my chance with them again. But I think probably Wayne would be a pretty interesting person to get to know.
Well, Nick, I think that anyone that you upset because you're a shit of a kid, as you put it, I think if they have passed, they would be looking down on you right now going, wow, look at that. Anyone can turn out amazing.
Yeah, I'd be like shaking their heads. How did that happen? Wow, how did that happen?
You're one of the characters, Nick, and unfortunately today they do try and stamp out a lot of character out of athletes or, people in general. So, what you've achieved so far has been incredible. What you're doing for these young kids with disabilities is amazing, and you definitely deserve to be the hero of Australia for the local hero. Tell us a little bit about that process. Obviously, you had to be nominated. Tell us a little bit about what that was like for you.
Oh, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And look, a lot of the people that I met, you'd have met at your level of swimming and Olympians and living in that world. But for me, apart from people that maybe you train with, you don't mix in those circles. So the person who nominated me actually chose to be anonymous. So it's probably my mum, I don't know, or my dad, I don't know. But then you go to the Queensland Awards, and I thought I was just making up the numbers, and I was so out of, there were people there. There was a gentleman there, Clive Berghofer, who whose name you see on the side of like hospitals and large buildings. So at one point I was sitting beside him, again, too nervous to talk to him. So people like that were in the room. So for me, it was a really, really humbling experience. And what was even more humbling, which probably doesn't necessarily resonate as much with other people watching this, but there was a gentleman in the room, Peter Dornan, who was actually, he ended up being the Senior of the Year for Queensland and travelled with me as part of this whole journey. Well, he was the original sort of sports physio in this country. And you know, he tells this funny story about how on one particular weekend he was the Wallabies, Kangaroos and Australian cricket team physio with them on the one weekend. And I thought, wow, you know, I'd read about him and known about him for a while. So he actually came up to me and introduced himself, and he sort of said, look, no physio's ever won one of these awards at a state or a national level, so best of luck, and it would be amazing if one of us could win. And then as it was, like we both won, and he actually said to me, you know, I've waited 60 years to be the first physio to win one of these awards, and luckily for Peter, my award was announced first, so I beat him by about 10 minutes. So, but then from there you go down to Canberra and you mix with all the other state and territory winners, and I was incredibly lucky again. This year was the 60th anniversary, so they invited a whole bunch of sort of alumni guests to come down. So I got to meet people like Mark Taylor, who are like heroes of mine, and Dawn Fraser was another one. And just, again, I really want to make sure that as many times now I get to take my family with me when we do things, because I'm away so often with teams and stuff. So my whole family was able to come down, and for sort of my daughters who are, look, they're okay swimmers. And I mean, they're only sort of 5 and 7 as well. But for them to be, particularly my eldest one, trying to exchange best times for 25 freestyle with Dawn, I thought it was like, wow, I had to pinch myself that we were even a part of something like that. And Dawn being amazing about it too, like sort of saying, okay, well, I can't remember if I was in yards or meters, but I think, and I thought, wow, this is like amazing. So that whole experience was incredible. Again, you couldn't be disappointed for not winning, because everyone in your category is doing amazing stuff. So I certainly never went there with an intention to win, but it was amazing just to be able to meet a whole bunch of people and be a part of that whole sort of journey. I'd certainly, if you know anyone who's a worthy recipient, please nominate them. One of the things that I think sometimes happens is people don't get nominated for the amazing work they're doing. And I was just lucky enough to be nominated, and then lucky enough to get as far as I did.
Yes, as I said before, hard work, great people, just get lots of luck. So, you know, Nick, you have been, I really appreciate your time today. I know that we're a crazy world that we're living at the moment, and you're doing your best to keep your practice open. So I just want to thank you for joining me. Congratulations on being Queensland's local hero for 2020, and keep going with what you're doing, because you're impacting a lot of lives.
My absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks, Nick.